Hi, I'm JC and I'm here to help you with your English. Today we're going to listen to a story, and this is a story which is called Bye Bye Gary. Now while you're listening to the story, I'd like you to take notes, pay special attention to the verbs, and if you have some difficulty listening to the story, the second time you listen to it, why don't you use the closed caption feature on your player? Okay? But the first time, try to listen to the story and take notes without any help. Okay? So after that, I'd recommend that you try to tell the story yourself, record it on your cell phone or on your computer, and then listen to your verbs and listen to the information that you have given about the story. All right? And have fun. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Gary. Quite a few years ago, I was on a prolonged stay with my mother in Nova Scotia. My dad had recently passed away, and my mom was talking about selling the family home. It was indeed too big for her alone, and she realized she needed to downsize. Since we had planned to get the house on the market within a few months, we drew up a list of chores which needed to be executed. One major task involved getting the back deck sanded and restained before fall. I offered to take care of the project, so I went to Canadian Tire to purchase the necessary items: sandpaper, paintbrushes, and deck stain. Upon returning home, I put my Canadian Tire bag and the can of deck stain in the garage for safekeeping and locked the garage door. It was late afternoon, so I went indoors to help my mom get supper ready. The next morning after breakfast, I headed outside and walked towards the garage. I unlocked the door and went to the place where I had left the Canadian Tire bag and the stain the day before. The stain was there, but not the bag. It was not in sight. I couldn't understand it. I checked all around. Nothing. Then from the corner of my eye, I spied a piece of the Canadian Tire bag in the far back left corner. It was sticking out of a 5-inch hole in the floor. Again, I couldn't understand how that bag had gotten there. I quickly pulled it out of the hole. Everything was still inside the bag. Had someone or something tried to hide the bag in the hole? I really had no idea. Bewildered, I brought the bag outside and took out the sandpaper and began sanding the deck. When I was ready for a much-deserved coffee break in mid-morning, I told my mom about the Canadian Tire bag, and she too was somewhat perplexed about it. Later that day, after finishing the sanding, I was relaxing in the family room, which had a big patio door overlooking the backyard. All of a sudden, I noticed something moving at the back of the yard. It was a brownish, furry creature that reminded me of a beaver. The creature came closer to the deck and then climbed the stairs and meandered up to the patio door. It was a groundhog and apparently was as bold as brass. It put its nose on the patio door screen and looked at us. We were quite surprised, to say the least. We decided to name him Gary. After a minute or so, Gary turned around and made his way towards the garage. I went outside and walked to see where he had gone. Upon entering the garage, I saw the groundhog go down into the hole that I had discovered that morning. That explained why my Canadian Tire bag had ended up there. Gary had probably planned on redecorating his den. During the next few days, Gary became a source of entertainment for us and any of our visitors. Every morning, after I opened the garage doors, he would come out and waddle down the driveway. We'd always say, "There goes Gary, off to work." Later each day, he'd return home and go into the backyard to feast on sweet grass and stare at us. We enjoyed sitting on the deck watching him while he ate his dinner. After a week or so, my mother said that she was afraid that Gary might take up permanent residence and maybe have a family if ever a couple were formed. I agreed with her, so I called Natural Resources Canada, and they said they would immediately send a guy with a cage for a fee of only $25. 30 minutes later, a strapping young bearded man arrived in a pickup truck. He told us to put some lettuce in the cage that he had brought. After doing so, the young man left and told us to call him whenever Gary was captured. Mom and I went inside and started preparing supper. About 20 minutes later, we heard the sound of metal clanking in the backyard. We looked out back, and sure enough, our friend Gary was in the cage and not too happy about it. We immediately called the Natural Resources guy, and he came that very evening to retrieve Gary. We felt sorry for Gary since he was such a cute little creature, but we knew that he would be much happier and safer in a more wooded area with his own kind. We thanked the young man and wished Gary a safe trip to his new home. Bye-bye, Gary.